Hello yogis. In this lesson, I really wanted just to break down Chaturanga. So I teach a lot of classes all over Sydney, and I also teach Zoom classes everywhere from people all over the world. And one of the most common things I see is Chaturanga kind of difficulties. So I want to just go over the fundamentals of Chaturanga. If you had two blocks with you, I can really show you some great fun things you can do with the blocks. So if you had two blocks, great, or something you can use like blocks like, I don't know, almond milk or soy milk containers or books or something, but blocks would be awesome if you had them. So it's important to understand Chaturanga. The wrists will be in line with your elbows. So even if you sit like this and hug your arms in close to your torso, flex your hands so the palms face out, have your wrists in line with your elbows, hug into the center line, move your shoulders down towards the earth. Now try to fill the space between your shoulder blades. So if you think about drawing the rib cage in towards your spine, you'll fill the space between your shoulder blades. It's like a slight broadening of the upper back. So find that alignment, wrists in line with elbows, arms hugging in, shoulders down, crown lifting up, and the rib cage drawing in, core gently active. So there's basically the upper body of our Chaturanga. Now, place your blocks, if you have them, on the highest setting, about your shoulder distance apart. So highest setting of the blocks, your shoulder distance apart. Then come to a plank pose. So in order to understand Chaturanga, you need to be able to do a good plank and understand plank. So the wrists are below your shoulders. Your toes are below your heels. Your shoulders move towards your heels, and make sure that the index finger's facing forwards and that all the knuckles are pressing down into the earth and the fingertips are gripping your mat. So strong in your palms. Now press down so you lift away from the floor. It feels like everything on the underside of your body is lifting slightly. Now wrap your triceps back towards your knees. So fill the space between your shoulder blades. Let's shift forwards from the toes and all lower the knees. Now, slow motion, lower your shoulders just above the blocks and hug your arms close to the torso. So we have our shoulders pretty much in line with the elbows, the arms hugging in, the shoulders moving down, and we're trying to fill the space between the shoulder blades. Now straighten the arms, straighten the legs, and go to downward dog. Press into the hands, drive the hips and thighs back. Now make sure you try this exercise, this Chaturanga exercise, after you've done a bit of a warm-up. Maybe you've done the sun salutations video a couple of times. Let's make our way back into plank. Find your straight line, press the floor away from you, fill the space between your shoulder blades, reach the crown of the head away from your feet, wrap the triceps back towards your feet so the inner part of your elbow starts to face forwards. Feel the core engage, the legs engage. Now shift forwards from the toes, lower your knees if you like. Slow motion, start to bend your arms and hover the shoulders just on top of the blocks. Then straighten the arms, that's tough. Plank, downward facing dog. So, in effect, what we're doing, we're understanding that the shoulders stay in line with the elbows, so you get that right angle. The right angle that I talked about here, with the arms hugging in here. We don't want to have, which is what I see a lot, the shoulders dipping past the elbows. So if I didn't have the blocks there, most of the time I see people do this, whether or not the knees are down or not, they'll dip the shoulders past the elbows. When that happens, the whole shoulder starts to round in. You compress a little bit around the neck and the shoulder area. We're always trying to find space around the neck, and we're drawing energy to the center. So try to think of pulling energy to the center of your body in all directions. So the outside's in, the underside up, even the upper side slightly down. So we're pulling into center. Now that you understand that the shoulders got to stay in line with the elbows, you need to understand to shift forwards. Now, if you put your blocks on a diagonal, so a diagonal setting, still your shoulder distance apart, you're going to bring one hand in front of the block and the other hand just behind the block. So your hands are still in one straight line. Find plank pose again. Now, if I didn't shift forwards, look what happens. Now, you can do it with the knees down. If you don't shift forwards and you bend your arms, you're going to drop the block. And then the shoulder won't be quite on the other block. And notice how the elbows were back behind the wrist instead of being above the wrists. So that's why we shift forward slightly. So set your block up if you did it with me then. Otherwise, let's try the exercise now. Find your straight line plank. You can lower your knees if you want. Move the shoulders towards the feet, hug the arms in. Shift forwards from the toes, bend the arms without dropping that block, and lower your shoulder on top of the other block. Untuck the toes. Now try upward dog, straightening the arms. When you go to downward dog, the block will drop. Then lower your knees. So now we understand the elbows placed above the wrists. So we're finding that right angle. Now when you do your chaturanga, you can move the blocks. Just put them to the end of the mat. You can try it without the blocks now. And feel free just to try it with the knees down if you need to. So grip the floor with the fingertips, press into the knuckles, switch on the legs, wrap the triceps back to the feet and extend the crown away from the feet. Now shift forwards from the toes, imagine the blocks are there. On an exhalation, slowly start to bend the arms and keep your elbows directly above your wrist. Fill the space between your shoulder blades. Untuck your toes, maybe upward dog, straighten the arms, lift your inner thighs. Downward facing dog, exhale. Now it's quite tricky to hold chaturanga more than one breath, but eventually that's what you want to do. So we'll all try it with our knees down, shift forwards to plank, find the strong plank, which is the setup for our chaturanga, move the rib cage into the spine, shift slightly forwards from the toes, you know why, lower your knees. Now as you move your shoulders back towards your hips, start to bend your arms, imagine the blocks are there, hover, hover, hover. Now keep breathing, keep pressing the floor away from you. Breathe. Then lower the hips, cobra or upward facing dog. Downward facing dog, exhale. Lower your knees. So, there was the understanding of chaturanga, moving the rib cage in towards the spine, hugging the arms in close towards the sides of the torso, keeping the alignment of your wrists below your elbows, shoulders in line with elbows. That's the idea of chaturanga. Hopefully you've got a little bit of wisdom or understanding. Chaturanga is extremely difficult to do properly. I recommend keeping the knees down for a while, doing it over and over again, using the blocks like I showed you how to set them up. Just continually do that until you're ready for straight legs, and then continue just working hard in chaturanga, holding it for a few breaths. See how you go. Thank you so much for watching. Namaste.